like
I'll
videotape.
have to make it, so it's Monday, I'll write and make sure
Yeah.
the
well,
camera
we're
Going
not
around in
stopping
circles.
places.
I've seen that
We're
before.
not until we start the buckle.
Yes.
Makes it-
Well, makes sense, nobody's.
Oh,
yeah.
there you
There we
go.
go.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
You,
Whatever you did, very good.
we're live.
All right,
So the camera is.
right there. Okay, good evening, everyone. This is the Village of Warwick Planning Board meeting, December 12th, 2023. First thing we'll do is stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being live streamed, I guess is the proper technology. Just for your notice, it's also posted on the doors as you enter. Roll call?
Okay. So, the attendance, Jesse Gallo,
Here.
Brian Barber,
Here.
Kerry Boland,
Here.
Scott Brown,
Here.
Bill Olson,
I'm here.
Vanessa Holland,
Here.
Robert Dickover,
Present.
David Getz.
The first thing we have on the agenda is the acceptance of the November 14th, 2023 meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review them? Any,
I'll move we accept the minutes.
That's written.
is there a second?
I'll second
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain, I was not here for that meeting.
Okay, one abstention. So Brian is abstaining. All right. First application is 8 Forester Avenue.
Certified mailing receipts.
Thank you so much for,
No, it's all right. I don't think there's anybody. So just for the record, I'll do my thing, I guess, for 30 seconds.
Sure.
So the application before the board is for an amended site plan approval on 8 Forester Avenue. The property is located between Colonial Ave and Church Streets, currently an office building. There was a portion of the building is a single story, approximately 2,400 square feet. It had prior medical uses. They vacated the space and the applicant would like to convert that space to 3 residential dwelling units, as well as add a second story of 3 additional dwelling units. The area to be constructed is shown shaded on the map. It's in the CB zoning district. The applicants were working with the ARB and the village board for special use permit. I believe the ARB is wrapped up. Village board had a special use permit public hearing, but my understanding is with the addition of the 2-bedroom apartments, that hearing has to be redone because that wasn't part of the notice. Did I get that right, Bill?
Correct.
That's it.
Okay. And
Has anything changed since we were
So
here?
I actually revised the maps per Dave's comments,
Okay.
but, you know, I had aerial image in here, I had an approval date already in the block, which I got a little ahead of myself. But substantively, as far as the actual, what Bo is doing, nothing's changed.
So you have not yet gotten special use permit?
no.
No.
But we're gonna
We're
open
we're
it.
set for the January 2nd meeting, I believe, with the village board. And hopefully we'll get that at that point in time.
I'll move to open the public discussion. We're gonna do that anyway and then not close it, I think, right?
Right. Is there a second on the opening of the public hearing?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, all in favor. I will read the notice.
You're not gonna see if there's any comment first?
I'm gonna read the notice and then I'll
Okay.
forego the rules if there's a,
Okay.
I can exercise my voice. Planning Board of the Village of Warwick, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that pursuant to sections 145-93.c of the Code of the Village of Warwick, that the Planning Board of the Village of Warwick, New York, will hold a public hearing on the 12th day of December, 2023, at 7:30 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter can be heard that day at the Village Hall, 77 Main Street, Warwick, New York, on the application of Warwick LLC for final site plan approval for a project referred to as 8 Forester Ave, amended site plan, which seeks to amend a site plan to convert approximately 2,400 square feet of former medical office space on the first floor into 3 residential apartments and add a second story over the space, which will house 3 additional apartments. No physical ground disturbance is proposed. The subject property is located on the lands lying at 8 Forester Avenue within said village and shown generally on the tax maps as Section 207, Block 3, Lot 3, and for such other purposes as may lawfully come before the board. A copy of the plan is available for public inspection at the office of the planning board during regular business hours. Proposed plan has been posted on the village's website at villageofwarwick.org. All written communications addressed to the planning board must be received by the planning board at or prior to the public hearing. All persons interested are invited to attend. The meeting is open to the public. Dated November 14th, 2023, by order of the planning board of the Village of Warwick, New York, by Jesse Gallo, Chairman. Were there any correspondence received?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone here tonight that wishes to speak? Okay, hearing none. I'm not going to read the rules of the public hearing since there's no one here to speak. As we just discussed, the public hearing will make a motion
I'm
to.
moving, we hold the public hearing open until the village board makes a decision on the special use permit.
All right, is there a second on that motion?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, none opposed. So the public hearing will remain open until, I guess, the village has made their determination. And I think we have a meeting probably within a week after that or so.
I believe so, yeah.
So that'll be information that we'll get at that time. And then go from there, I guess.
Have a nice holiday.
Yes, you too.
See you next year.
See you next year.
Thank you.
That's it. Get your magnifying glass.
Are you going to give me new copies?
I am, yeah.
Okay, everything, four full-size copies, 2 11x16s, and then I need an electronic submission to myself as well.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
There were no changes to the elevations on the other side of the picture? That's what we saw last time, right?
I printed these right off the village's website.
Okay,
Yep, no, nothing's changed.
okay.
Good night, everybody.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Thank you so much.
Moving along, the second application for discussion is 43 Wheeler Avenue. Final site plan application.
Come sit
Yeah,
here,
you can sit right
Patrick.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, council seat.
I think the last we saw you, we opened the public hearing and then you had to go back to the village board for the special use permit,
Correct.
which you've now finalized
Correct.
as of our last meeting. And I understand there's some conditions that they placed
Yes.
on the approval,
Right,
and those are now part of the site
Second
plan.
that.
yes, do you want me to read
Yes,
those?
yeah.
So, they added, to the site plan set, they added a fourth sheet, which included the entire resolution from the village board, granting a special use permit. But there were 3 conditions that the village board called out. It's on the 3rd page, I guess, of the resolution. So it says here, the village board hereby grants this requested special use permit subject to the following conditions. 1, short-term rentals of the dwelling units shall not be permitted, and the applicant shall prepare and submit to the planning board for approval a site plan containing a note stating that short-term rentals of the dwelling units shall not be permitted. And 2, each dwelling unit shall be limited to 2 vehicles, inclusive of the off-street parking spaces on the subject property, and in other off-street parking on Wheeler Avenue, and in other on-street parking in the village inclusive of municipal parking lots. The applicant shall prepare and submit to the planning board for approval a site plan containing a note stating the same, which they've really done by including the whole
Right.
resolution. And condition number 3, the owners of the subject property shall, at their own expense, preserve and maintain the existing bluestone sidewalks on the property. The applicant shall prepare and submit to the planning board for approval a site plan containing a note stating the same. And those bluestone sidewalks are just in part of the property, correct?
Yes.
Um,
Well, yeah, this whole section here is bluestone. I think that's concrete down
Yes,
here.
that's concrete on that
And
side.
the apron here is blacktop, if I'm not mistaken. It's not
Okay.
bluestone anyway.
Right.
But you couldn't leave the apron as bluestone anyway,
Right.
so it makes no
Yeah,
difference.
So
But it's not bluestone.
the bluestone is in this stretch,
Yeah.
and it's in part of the site that they're not proposing any disturbance.
Right.
So it looks like they're meeting those 3 conditions with the latest plans.
And did you have any other comments other than that?
So
or-
their previous comments included, you had agreed to do permeable paving.
Yes.
There's been a detail added for that, and it's labeled on the plan. And then the latest change, there were a couple of iterations just last week. There was a fence shown previously, and now they've added a detail for that fence that serves as screening to the residential property to the side. I think those were the only changes. One other change. They've shown how, looking at the elevations, they've shown before that the roof drainage would come out to the street, but it's a little tricky because the road is higher up in the bend here. So they've added a pipe location here, which works with the elevations, that the road is lower over here. So the drain line is shown to come out to the curb line. There are no drainage structures, no catch basins or pipes to tie in right there. But they're showing the pipe to the curb, which happens in other places in the village, and then a repair
The sidewalk.
of the concrete sidewalk where that
So it
construction.
goes downhill this way?
Yes,
Yeah,
from there it'll
down
head
here.
down towards
The catch
McEwen.
basin down here?
Yes,
on
that's right,
Spring Street?
that's right. So I believe they've addressed our technical comments.
Great. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
The bluestone, is that strong enough to, if they bring some heavy equipment into doing work here, will it crack a little bit, or?
It
No, it
could,
won't. It won't affect. It won't. We already have 2 entrances
Yes.
to this
Yeah.
bluestone on it, so it won't. We won't even disturb it.
Okay, good,
they'd have to go over the curb
yeah,
there, so I
Right.
think you're right.
Yeah.
okay.
We've had a lot of opportunity to ask questions and discuss. Thank you for your patience.
Did the village define, or is there a definition for what short-term lease means? Is it
That's a good question.
I think it's Airbnb and stuff like that.
like a couple of days or weeks?
How short is short-term? in
How
other words?
short, or how long is short-term?
I guess short-term rentals are typically day rentals or like whatever, 1 day or
Well,
yeah, which
That's a good question.
we don't plan on doing anyway. But
Just say short-term.
Yeah, it just says short term.
Yeah, I think the village board is discussing policy for short-term rentals. So if it's not already defined in the code, it will be by policy, I think.
That is right.
So,
Any other comments or questions? None?
Was there
Rob?
any discussion about that bend in the road? I know this is not your issue to fix, but has that come up at all? Like maybe putting more reflective stuff on the road? Who do we talk to about that? Because it is gonna, the building will change one sight line when you're coming up the hill to see oncoming cars making the turn on the bend. So who,
the village board had a side discussion on that when you were there last. I was in attendance.
yeah, in actual fact, so before we cleared the site,
Yeah, trees there, right?
there was trees and bushes and it couldn't be seen. Now there's just one single tree here, and people coming around the turn can see the other side of the turn, and this is not going to affect it.
That corner's not
Yeah.
affected. Okay.
Well, it'll affect it if you're all the way back here, but
Right.
coming right around the turn,
Oh.
it's clearer now than the way it was before we started working on the site.
But they had some discussion about options for parking and other potential changes that they could make that would make that corner safer.
Okay.
So it's on their radar.
Is there parking?
No.
No parking there?
No.
And there's gonna be is parking here
No.
on the street?
Are signs already there? for-
Yeah,
There
there's
are
some-
no parking signs there now?
Yep.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Should we close the public hearing?
We have to make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, none opposed. So the public hearing is now closed. Guess we're looking
Done all your homework.
for a resolution.
Yep.
Who seconded to close the public hearing?
Bill.
Bill. Thank you.
I think so, right? So it would be a motion.
Board wants to consider a resolution of approval this evening. I've drafted that for your consideration. I can abbreviate it for you if you'd like to hear it. If you're not inclined to do that tonight, you've got at least 30 days, maybe 60, to make a decision.
I'm inclined.
I'm in favor.
I'm inclined.
Okay.
I'm going to abbreviate a resolution of approval for Patrick Corn for a three-family residence at 43 Wheeler. This is a site plan approval for a three-family residence construction. The resolution recites the history, date of filing with the application with the village, the date the board declared itself lead agency and made a secret determination. References the Orange County Planning Department report on 239, which was not required in this case. Reciting that the Village of Warwick has issued a special use permit on November 20th with conditions. And I believe the applicant has been into the AHRD for the village, and they've issued an advisory opinion and recommendations for the project, which have been considered by this board. The village zoning board granted a number of area variances back in April of '23. And this board, now having reviewed the objectives of site plan approval, determines to approve the application and the plan set, which was last redated December 5.
That's still true.
Okay. And determines to approve it subject to the following conditions. There are the usual general conditions: submit all necessary copies of the plans, pay any escrows or outstanding review fees. The chair has to be satisfied that all conditions have been satisfied, prerequisite before signing the plans. A reminder that the approval is good for 12 months absent an application to extend it. So if you don't get the project, the building permit issued, please file an application for an extension. Otherwise, the your approval will expire.
Right.
There is no approval for site plan elements that might be depicted on off-site properties. And as-built plans, if required by the village, will be submitted. Construction hours at the project are to be limited between the hours of 7 in the morning and 7 at night on weekdays, and 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. on weekends. No construction on Sundays. Specific conditions are: the owner shall construct and maintain the premises in keeping with the findings of the AHDRB as recited in its determination made September 20th, 2023, as may be amended. Do you have to go back to them? Or are we done?
Yeah, we're done.
So it does say, and as may be amended by subsequent determination of that board, but
Or if you decide to change something on your own, right, you'd have
Yeah,
to show
no,
them.
but we're good with whatever they wanted to do, so.
And then finally, subject to the applicant adhering, the applicant and all subsequent owners of the property adhering to the conditions that were imposed by the SUP. David read them to you, and they are recited within the resolution. That would be the extent of the resolution. And if inclined, a vote on the matter could be taken this evening.
I move we approve the resolution as indicated by the attorney.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, none opposed.
Thank you.
We'll have a written decision for the chair's review and signature, Charlotte.
All right. Great, thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so are we going to stop the stream? Or are we still going to talk?
I can drop these in the morning.
Okay.
I can buy those in the morning.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
Patrick.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Bye.
Yeah, I think it needs a,
I have two things to discuss, but they're not anything that needs to be streamed or. just
Okay.
notes.
because we do have one other thing on the agenda, which is just the draft rules of meeting procedures. We had discussed them last meeting, and I think Carrie, you had some comments.
Did we get was it updated, or did I miss an update on it, or?
I haven't seen anything new
Okay,
It's on the, it was updated, it's
Oh.
on, it's on the website.
on the website.
I didn't look at it then.
Okay,
Well, what we can do is we can hold that then, if we want some more time to review
I
it.
would like some
Yeah,
time
then we'll
to
just
review
put
it.
that back onto the January agenda.
Yeah, I'll have to reread it too.
Is there anything in there that is any significant change, would you say?
No, I think it was, you had a couple of just,
I had some, and I did some proofreading, and I dropped it off, so
yeah,
don't know
mhm,
So-
that was all changed.
Changes, what I meant is changes to what we've been doing in the past.
no, it wasn't like substantial changes of
Just
our
clarifying
normal.
stuff.
It's more or less just documenting it. Otherwise, it was just, you know, for someone that starts or just wants to review it, it's at least
Yeah,
in black and white and not
Right.
just verbal.
yeah.
That isn't consistent all the time. So.
There's, the way it reads, it's a little less relaxed than we've generally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I wonder if once you adopt that, it's certainly nice to have those kind of rules if we were in a circumstance where there's some maybe contention or sort of more public
It's a framework. Yeah.
input. And I wonder if we stay relaxed until we need to invoke those rules, if
Mhm.
that's a problem in consistency.
You're asking if we don't follow those rules exactly at some contentious hearing, we might get comments from the public?
Well, it's not the contentious hearing that I'm worried about, because that's when you want to invoke the
Mhm.
rules that help keep order,
Yeah,
right? But
right,
if
but if we
we're,
don't.
if we don't use them on a regular basis, could we have a problem when we're in a contentious situation?
I think once we look at them and improve them, we should implement them
Yeah.
immediately.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be maybe cases that some things just don't apply, or we have to change it based on a case-by-case basis. But
It's also.
overall, they're pretty high level, and it's not very specific.
They're
you
not
know.
very different from what we typically
Yeah.
do.
Right, and it's also an opportunity to see if, okay, does this actually, did we say what we mean, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. So I would suggest we all take another look at them and
Definitely.
maybe offer any comments
Yeah.
for January where we can discuss that maybe in more detail if we do want to change anything. All right, so we'll carry that over to the next meeting then. Dave, sorry, Rob.
Two things. Before we got started this evening, Scott was commenting on change of use, and I stand corrected for the second time on this issue. I hate making the same mistake twice. But you're right, the statute does say that the change of use application goes to the secretary of the board for a determination as to whether or not it's complete, and from there it does come to this board. The reason for my error 2 times now is that I wrote that statute back in probably 95. It got adopted in 99, and when I wrote it the way I told you, that it should go to the building inspector as the gatekeeper. And there were a number of meetings, joint meetings between this board and village board members, and pretty much the building inspector at the time, he didn't want the responsibility, and so that gatekeeper was stricken out of it, and it came into existence the way that you said it did. The secretary, and hence my confusion about it all these years. Why we weren't seeing every one of them and what was going on, I don't really know. And whether it's gonna change or not at this point, I don't really know what conversations may have transpired with the new office staff. So you're right, maybe you will see more of them. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's on the list of things to tackle. Like we just tackle the general site plan application, the subdivision that you've been
Yeah.
working on.
And did you see Raina's email that in the village code, there are 17 different categories of
Yes.
fees for a subdivision application? We
Right.
should simplify that, right?
Right. Yeah. So we're trying to pick off, I guess, the larger things
Yeah.
and to get those in order. But the change of use is definitely on the list to kind
And-
of
and-
work out.
Back to that point, when I'm walking down West Street and I see a big coming soon banner, it kind of makes me think that we're gonna see something here for a change of use.
All right, what do you mean?
When it's storefront, there was one
Signage.
thing, there's gonna be a different thing.
Right.
I thought the banner across the road, that.
Oh, no.
That
No,
homecoming.
on it, in the front window of
Yeah.
a shop front,
Oh, okay.
we probably ought to expect to see.
Didn't we had that,
Change
thing, it was
of-
gonna be
change of
wine,
use.
Yeah, the place
across-
next to.
that
Yeah,
going anywhere?
We approved
approved
the
it.
changed one, but there's another business across the street that's.
Even then, I think as we discussed a few meetings back, the signage almost all the signage has to come through the planning board for change of use. Correct me if I'm wrong on that?
It used to.
Currently, I think that's the way it's.
Right.
Yeah,
it's
he's
just
working
the
on
way
it.
it's- Yeah.
You're talking about board and brush.
No, across from Board and Brush.
Oh, that's the wine part. I thought you were making reference to that.
Yeah, across the street.
But even then, that should come through, because even it's a change of signage on
Is it-
there.
That-
That's
that
how
goes
I
to
interpreted it as well when
ARB.
I read it.
Board and brush
That
is
goes to
across
AARB,
from
not
Apple
us.
No,
Pharmacy.
it actually,
It's not gonna be the
as
wine.
I read it,
That's the one.
because the signage actually
Is there-
goes through
Yeah.
the change of use and through the planning board.
If it's
Yeah.
changed in position.
Board and brush.
No.
No, just a change of the sign?
So
Yeah.
that will be vacated.
Yeah.
It is a cumbersome.
Just the changes, I
So
didn't,
that's across the street.
As I read it, because that's
the
when we were
wine-
going
that's the
through,
Whitney wine bar.
and it was the place on what, it actually talked about change of signage.
Yeah.
So,
They
yeah.
used to be here, and then we stopped seeing them. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
Because even then, the one we were reading, we actually had a resolution from the planning board back in the 80s
Mhm.
discussing it.
back in the 80s.
No, it actually discussed it and how it needed to come back through in the grandfathering in of one of the signs.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
If there's a list out there, this just came to my mind, whenever the village might update, the village board would do this, the code, there's no definition that I can ever find in the zoning code for building height. So policy has been, let's use what the town does, which is pretty much a weighted average, let's say all four sides of the building, and there's conditions if it's a peaked roof versus a flat roof, go halfway up the peaked roof, but it should be in the code, there should be a
Right.
definition, and it doesn't have to be the one from the town, but that's, when I talked to Dan Kelly years ago, he said that's what we should use at the planning board, so that's what we've been doing. It doesn't come up too often, but sometimes it does.
But why wait for it to?
Mhm. So should I let the mayor know that, or?
This board can
Bring it.
suggest code revisions if you wanna draft something and send it over there. Send it, it would come from Jesse's signature.
Yeah,
as
that's a
board
good one.
All right,
recommendation.
I'll get you something to.
Well, what would be your suggestion for the building height? I mean, a lot of it was predicated on what the fire department can get to. But now the fire department has ladders that go, I don't know, very, very high.
Right,
So that may not be the limit that it used to be.
so.
So it
some-
used to be 2 stories, 2.5, or 3 stories.
But there's
well,
a
It's different in different zones,
right.
but
But there is a height
yeah,
restriction.
many times it's 2 stories and 35 feet, or 2.5
Right.
stories and 35 feet, but how do you define, or how do you measure the 35 feet?
Right. Off of
Yeah.
which elevation,
Yes,
what corner of the
because
building.
many sites have a sloping
Right.
side yard, it could be 3 stories in the back and 2 in the front, so there's a big variety of definitions, you've seen them too, one town says, tell us the height at the front door, that's your
Right.
building height. But the town of Warwick says, take all four sides of the building and do a
Average.
weighted average of that. If it's, you know, 50 feet is 20 feet high and 25
But-
feet is 30 feet high, do a whole calculation. And steeples don't count, antennas don't count, and on a peaked roof, the town says you don't have to go, on a sloping roof, you don't have to measure to the peak, measure halfway up between the eave and the peak for that height calculation.
And is that just an attic roof, or is that like a livable,
Any type of
so even a living space?
in there, yes, even in a living space.
But again, then what is an appropriate maximum height?
Well, the fire department could weigh in on
Yeah,
that.
because that's
Yeah.
usually what it was.
Mhm.
You know, and then they say, okay, well, it's 33 feet, is that 2.5 or 3 stories, or is it 4 stories? Okay. Depending on whatever they could access.
It's
Right,
also
no,
a
that's
matter of
right.
appearance.
Yeah,
so
it's
it's-
Yeah.
Well,
That I
it's
think in
also,
front
that
of
was
them.
that was a
Character.
major function, is if the fire department figured they couldn't access 50 feet, then it had to be much
Right.
less than that.
Right, because you could get a building 50 feet high in actuality, but could meet the definition for a 40-foot
Right.
building height.
Mhm.
If you're gonna write something, Dave, I would suggest you try and make it consistent with what this board has granted approvals for in the past, otherwise you're gonna have variance applications like crazy in front of the ZBA.
Mhm.
Try and keep it consistent with what's in the village already.
Yeah, we've generally seen not very tall structures that, well, recently, anyway,
Right.
that I can remember.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
That weren't already pre-existing, you know, but
Biggest
were gonna
one's
be
probably
built.
Kennedy's Apartments.
Forester
there,
Yeah.
Forester
apartments,
Avenue.
right,
Yeah. And that was under the low.
And we
or
had
under
that
the-
issue because it was on a slope.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was-
Forget exactly how we determined the height of the building, but it
The
did
ones that are
require
already
variance.
built, they slope down and
yeah, they do,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
I
terrible.
think we averaged the height of them or something at the different elevations, but
But they start here, but the height of the building at the lower end is about the same.
yeah,
So,
yeah. To the point,
mhm.
so.
All right.
I'll move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Meeting's now adjourned.
Is the streaming? over?
Jesse, I won't be here at the January meeting. I'm gonna be
There's nothing to
visiting my children in Florida, so I'll miss that
Oh.
meeting. I will draft, if you want me to, a decision for Forester
Forester,
Avenue.
yeah.
The other thing I want to tell you is I have a retirement imminent. And, I'm very happy to say so.